Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I got a few things to get to. Some truther stuff on SNL and Saturday Night Live, and a few other things that have been hanging out in my toolbar. My wife and a variety of people had sent me this yesterday or the day before. United Nations photo. A guardian for the international peace and security. This is the Guardian. Sits on the visitors' plaza outside UN headquarters. The Guardian is a fusion of a jaguar and an eagle donated by the government of, I can't pronounce that word, in Mexico. It is created by artists Jacobo and Maria Angelis. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But anyways, it is a chimera, is that what they pronounce it? Chimera or whatever it is. A mix of two animals, which would only be done by genetic manipulation. A winged jaguar. And it's supposed to be for peace and security. I don't know why you would need something like that because, they have armies. Here it is in a variety of different angles outside the UN. Then there is a twist. UN sculpture looks a lot like the end times beast referred to in Daniel 7 and Revelation 13. And it says here on Daniel 7:2-4, I saw my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove up upon the great sea, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. And it says the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings, aka a griffin. Of course, Disney had a very similar character that had pedo symbols all over it, right, from the FBI. It's one of Disney's cartoon. I think the name of the creature was called a Zephyr. And so that was, part of the Disney Channel, one of their TV shows. And so there's that. And so then there's this quote from the book of Revelation. And the beast in which I saw unto a leopard, and his feet were of a bear, and his mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So for some people, it's an end time statue here, The beast is described in Revelation is where the book of Revelation is the only place where you'll find any reference to 666 and the mark of the beast. But anyways, the UN keeps on delivering, right? And then Evergrande has defaulted on its debts. It's this big Chinese, one of the world's biggest real estate developer, and now they're in a state of default. I guess there's some maybe issues with some cryptocurrency too that's involved with this. We'll see how it all plays out. I don't know that much about it, but it's when you're teetering on the brink of economic collapse, like anything can be the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't know if this will be, but it could, right? There's just too much debt and too much, fudging of the books on a global economic level. And something's going to, push the world economy over the cliff. We don't know if it's Evergrande, but it could be something else. So then there's this Time magazine named their Athlete of the Year, and it's Simone Biles because she, didn't compete. She got the yips, or the twisties is what they were calling it. And so she couldn't compete because she had some sort of psychological issue. And because of that, she's Athlete of the Year. So it's no longer about winning, or even competing. It's about withdrawing, right? Like it's about not competing. That's how you win Athlete of the Year. Simone Biles named Athlete of the Year by Time magazine. So, Tom Brady won his whatever number Super Bowl. And then there was other big athletic, winning and victory and competing and all these things. But the person who withdrew because of psychological issues is the athlete of the year. That's how you know your society's played out. Like it's, it's over itself, right? There's no longer any interest in, I mean, how many Olympics have there been? How many, Super Bowls and World Series have there been? It's like getting into like the 60th Super Bowl and I don't know what the 100th something World Series, 80th, I don't know what it is. NBA championship, all these things, right? It becomes redundant, so they, make up stuff, right? Like this. So I cover Saturday Night Live sucking, like you guys know, oftentimes on Sunday morning or Monday, I get around to looking at it. It's hard for me to get through. And I woke up kind of tired this morning and get enough sleep. And so I was going through Saturday Night Live, and it was hosted by Billie Eilish, and I just couldn't get through the stuff. It was just too sucky and life sucking, right? And oftentimes I, find a sketch. It's not hard to. It's usually at least one episode, at least one sketch each week has something pervy or pedo-y or whatever it is. But I watched a few sketches and I saw this thing on birds I'm going to get to where, there's this birds are fake theory that's out there. And, I was just going to post this video and I clicked on this one sketch after I had already made, the screen grab of this, thing I'm doing here. And I was closing the tabs and it showed me that it was recommending this one sketch from Saturday Night Live about, business hotels. And I clicked on it and you can see that they have this, you can see for yourself. It's they always have pedo jokes and perv jokes. And this is this episode's. And here's the latest.
Sure to enjoy her hot tub. It's always occupied by an 8-year-old boy in goggles staring at your breasts.
The show's not funny. It's just life sucking, but it's also depraved. It always ends up here in pedo land. Anyways, let's get to this birds thing and how the mainstream media, in this case Saturday Night Live, are dealing with so-called conspiracy theories or truther videos. So my wife told me about this. This is the New York Times, and then one of my viewers sent me this morning. My wife told me about this some weeks ago. Wake up. Birds aren't real. Birds charge on power lines. So this guy, birds aren't real, or are they, inside a Gen Z conspiracy theory. This guy's 23, and now it is something that is moving around the internets. So I guess there's some billboards put up in Pittsburgh and Memphis and Los Angeles. The events were all connected. There were some protests at Instagram and TikTok. The events were all connected by Generation Z fueled conspiracy theory, which posts that birds don't exist and are really drone replicas installed by the U.S. government to spy on Americans. Hundreds of thousands of young people have joined the movement, wearing birds aren't real t-shirts, swarming rallies, and spreading the slogan, birds ain't frickin' real. So our cat Wampus, and we have a couple of neighbors' cats that, come into our yard and hang out in our barn. And they regularly kill birds, right? Leave them on the ground. We also have starlings that get caught in our chicken coop and die, and, a lot of bird deaths and chickens, right? And I know that these birds are all made up of flesh and blood. Like, I've seen it, right? We can put this conspiracy to rest unless they have some other way of explaining it, which I'm sure they do. But in terms of the truther movement, we now know what phase the mainstream media and the powers that be are in dealing with the so-called truth community. And so here are some examples. This is from last night on Saturday Night Live.
Sorry, you can't sit on my lap anymore. Thanks to the vaccine, my testicles have ballooned in size.
So this was the cold open sketch last night on Saturday Night Live.
Stop! No! That's just a conspiracy theory, and
It's just a conspiracy theory. And so this whole term conspiracy theory, well, I'll come back to that, right? There's something else that they did on
TikTok. I went through some of these Saturday Night Live videos, and they're just so bad. The energy, like, just sucks the energy out of you. They're just not funny. You know, Kate McKinnon, one of her better impressions is Fauci. But I guess at the end they bring in 80, whatever her name is, it's as Ted Cruz. I didn't get that far in the video, but I saw it was there. But anyways, they also had this one. The whole sketch is some kids scrolling through TikTok, right? And one of the things he stumbles on is this.
Blake Lively's dress is Illuminati false flag to distract us from the vaccine. Evidence.
So this is just two cases of them, repeating this mantra of conspiracy theories and making conspiracy theorists, so-called conspiracy theorists, people who look at alternative explanations to our, mainstream narratives as crazy, right? And then this is how Brian Williams, I covered this in another video like 2 days ago. This is how Brian Williams and the main character from Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol, the young Robert Langdon character, characterize truther movements.
But the darkness on the edge of town has spread to the main roads and highways and neighborhoods. It's now at the local bar and the bowling alley, at the school board and the grocery store. And it must be acknowledged and answered for.
And in this post-truth world, where does that leave us?
So I covered in the video, maybe it was yesterday, how ridiculous it was that Dan Brown, which, started so much of this Illuminati Freemasonic stuff, an idea of shadow governments and these fraternal organizations and all the rest of it, symbology being used in ways to communicate and the rest of it, right? He's a symbologist, and he's talking about post-truth. So just historically, and I've talked about this with the truth community, in 2000, early 2001, when the truth community sort of took off from the big event, this was something where before this, there was an underground, less than 1% of the population in America was aware of some narratives about the Federal Reserve, some of these truther narratives, early truther narratives, and some of these, so-called conspiracies. And there was, ex-vets like my brother, people were in Vietnam who, there was AM radio shows. My brother had an AM radio show, and there was like underground newsletters and things like that, right? And for the most part, it was, a small percentage of the population until the internet and YouTube and social media took off in 2001. And then, the next so many years, the early 2000s, there was just like the Wild West. You could post anything on YouTube. There's no censorship on social media. And it just grew and grew and grew. Now, some of the things were legitimate. Some of them were ridiculous, and people, some of it was crazy, just because it's wrong, right? But the mainstream media's policy was to not even acknowledge its existence. Once in a while, Alex Jones would show up on mainstream media, and they would talk about how there were these crazy conspiracy theorists, right-wing conspiracy theorists. But it was just, occasionally. For the most part, the mainstream narrative ignored this new growing group, this demographic that was taking over social media. And more people were getting their news from social media because the mainstream media sucked. The news sucked. It was obviously contrived and based in lies. But the next stage is when Hillary Clinton lost, and she blamed it on, the Russians and Russia Today, some of these obscure YouTube channels, some of these so-called conspiracy theories and fake news. And that was a switch. You saw a switch being thrown. Now all of a sudden there was censorship and the demonization of, so-called truthers, or what they called conspiracy theorists, because Trump shouldn't be president. Trump should never be president. He was a bad guy, potentially a disaster, could wreck the country, and was going to wreck the country. And people are no longer listening to the mainstream media. They had other ways of getting news and making their decisions, and that didn't sit well, right? You could see there was a shift because they were like losing control of reality, like the narratives that make up American reality, right? And all of a sudden now it was a real problem. And so, like I said, they imposed some censorship, and they had been building a profile for a while of crazy right-wing conspiracy theorists. That they were pathologizing this group. And it was a very specific, these are people who are mostly white Republicans who are disgruntled and, very angry, and the way the country was being taken away from them. And they were, racist and all these things, which, most of know. I mean, there's so many liberal people and people of color and people in the LGBTQ community. I mean, all these different demographics are represented and watch truther videos, right? There's lots of people who, believe in one or two of these various narratives or multiple narratives, or at least open to them, and they watch these videos. They're entertained by them. Some people take it more seriously, but it's 70% of Americans are watching these videos. I mean, I don't even know how many it is, right? I mean, it's all these different sort of woke movements, but there's lots of anti-government stuff, and people don't trust the media. People's trust of the media, their trust of the government is very low, right? They don't even take polls on it anymore because they don't even want to tell you how many people distrust the media and the government. It's almost like, probably around 70-80% in one level or another, right? It's an overwhelming segment of the population, and it's all different demographics. But they went with this narrative. They'd been creating this profile for a while, but still they weren't talking about it all that much. But then going into COVID, and they started to really censor on social media, and they really started to demonize, especially after January 6th. They made so-called conspiracy theorists the next big enemy of America and freedom and all the rest of it, right? America always has enemies. All countries and governments have to have enemies to sort of galvanize their support of the government, right? America, because the military-industrial complex always has a number of enemies, and there's usually one that's focused on. You'll see there'll be the villains in TV shows and in movies, right? And, for a while it was the Russians, and it was Islamic, these disgruntled Islamic people and things like this, right? The T word. And then that was replaced by the domestic T word, right? And now, of course, the truthers. So truthers are the big enemy, right? They're like the ISIS of yesteryear or some of these other groups, right? Some either foreign government. And they're the biggest threat to America because they don't believe in the official story, right? Because you have the audacity not to believe in the official story, but these guys are getting caught lying left and right. They're constantly getting caught lying. I mean, not just the government, but also the media, and they're, just watch the media and the politicians, and they're not even like real human beings. They're so fake. They're not, they can't connect. You can't connect with them. They're not like, authentic or genuine or any of these things. They're just fake. They're just completely fake. They're not likable in any real way. But if you don't accept the programming, and most people don't, you're labeled now a conspiracy theory and an enemy of the state, a conspiracy theorist and an enemy of the state. But there are conspiracies. There's a word for it. People conspire, people lie. Everybody lies, and some people lie more than others, and people take advantage of their position. They leverage their position to, for any number of ways, right? And there's multiple conspiracies that have been proven, like big conspiracies done by the government. And you have a well-funded intelligence community that has been caught or has admitted to doing mind control programs amongst so many other things, right? But if you doubt the official story, you're a mentally ill and possibly dangerous conspiracy theorist. And that's what they're rolling with, and they're doing it everywhere. This is a new, they're talking about it constantly. It's brought up every day on CNN and MSNBC. I don't know what they're doing over on Fox, but then it's, joked about on the late night TV, comedians like Jimmy Kimmel. I don't want to call them comedians, Stephen Colbert, and all these shill late-night comedians, and it's, pretty prevalent. Like Brian Williams signed off with this foreboding warning, but if you believe in a conspiracy Well, let's say this. When you're in a relationship, people cheat and they stab you in the back, right? So everybody has trust issues. And if your significant other cheats on you and you accuse them of cheating, they might call you paranoid and jealous and, all these things. There's ways that they would have of, instead of saying, hey, yeah, we are scummy. Like, this is what they could do. This is what the mainstream media and the government could do. They could either admit that there are legitimate conspiracy theories, that they're not theories at all, they're actually conspiracies. There's legitimate conspiracies, and that the government lies and the media lies, and they're liars. And once they admitted that, those institutions would crumble. The government would crumble, the financial system would crumble, and the, everything else, the media, all of it would crumble. Because once they admit they're liars, like that's, criminals can't admit they're criminals, liars can't admit they're liars, And so that's their only other option. They have to demonize and gaslight you, right? They have to, make you crazy. They have to say you're crazy because you know what they are, right? They can't admit what they are. And so their only other option is to say you're crazy. And now it's like they have to say it over and over again because it's harder and harder for them to, hide what they are, right? There's a spiritual awakening that's happening. People are connecting to God and work is being done on them whether they know it or not. And truth is just coming out, right? A lot of the lies are just coming to the surface and they can't hide them anymore. So it's harder and harder, especially now with the internet, to keep the illusion up, right? To keep the illusion going. And so they have to distract from it. They have to say, all right, the people who are accusing us of being scumbags, and they are scumbags, right? Who are rightfully accusing us of being scumbags, we'll turn it on them. We'll have this QB movement, which is crazy, right? That they control. The scumbags control the QB movement or whatever else. Now this bird thing, and they'll get people to follow, these things that are ridiculous instead of getting to, all this disinformation that's out there. But at the end of the day, I don't care about it. Like, it doesn't upset me because once it's acknowledged that they're scumbags, like I said, the whole thing's over. I mean, there's no returning from that, right? Because that means there's a loss of credibility and faith in the system that's 100% predicated on illusion and perception. And so once people no longer believe in America and the media and the economic system and all of it, the government, the system collapses. And, nobody wants to really live through that. I mean, it's going to happen. It's for the best because it's a sucky system, like I say over and over again. But I'm in no rush, right? And so that's why I do the apocalaughs. I just laugh at it because, like the alternative is not having any system, not having any system that we're 100% dependent on. And when that happens, we'll all have to do what we have to do to survive, right? I mean, future generations, it's going to fall on our kids and our grandkids for the most part. And, but it's going to take generations to right the ship and build a new system that is based in divine principles. But we're not going to see that, right? Most of us. I mean, I don't even know if even our grandkids are going to see that. It's, might take hundreds of years. So it's a transitionary period, and, why take it that seriously, right? If people want to think birds are fake, I mean, they're doing damage to the truth community, but, it's the truth community has already kind of jumped the shark in the sense that there's too much lies, too many crazy people, and dum-dums and, all the rest. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.